Hi, Pershing back with you at Digital Sacalait Productions here in Houma, Louisiana. I'm in my workspace right now, the place where I do all my work. I sit in this chair 8, 10 hours a day and either record my clients or edit the recordings that I do for my clients. And I guess the first thing that typically pops out at people the first time they come in my studio is where's the giant console? Usually, when you walk into a recording studio, there's a large mixing console, recording console. Uh, and as you can see, I don't have one. And there's a reason behind that. I'm going to explain it. I do have a virtual console here. I can move these faders with this touch screen. So, if you really want a console, here's one. It's a console. But in the 17 years that I've been doing this full time, and the 80 plus albums that I've produced, I don't know, 1,600 songs from a blank container, I've yet to find a need for a giant console and make the investment into it. And I'm going to explain why that's the case. Uh, Again, I've done a bunch of records, got a bunch of clients, produced a bunch of songs. I have a process. I'm sure every producer has a process. My process works. It's tried and true, uh, and has yet to fail me. And I'll kind of explain how that works. But a little background before I even started this as a full time job. I produced 3 albums back in the 90s at a studio called Apple Tracks. My brother Bill had that studio. And that was tape, so I do have tape, 16 track tape, which is very different from what we're doing today. So everything went to tape, and at the time we were actually doing some kind of cutting edge stuff because we did have a console, had a 16 by 16 console. It was a Tascam board. The 16 outs went to the tape machine, but there were 16 tape ins, and there was and also there was like a tap switch or flip switch, I think is what it was called, where you can go between the virtual inputs, which we had actually a computer. It was a 286 Pentium based computer with Cakewalk, which the first version of Cakewalk, which is a MIDI at the time, just a MIDI utility. And we were doing some cutting edge stuff. We were recording audio to tape, but we're also doing some MIDI mixing. Had 16 tracks of MIDI via, I think it was a Turtle Beach sound card then, and a Roland S50 sampling keyboard. And so we could actually mix in like strings and piano parts, virtual stuff, MIDI stuff, in with the tape and mix it down like that. So I actually could mix 32 tracks at once, 16 MIDI tracks and 16 live tracks, so 16 tape tracks. So I kind of got my experience, you know, working in a multi-track environment then. And again, I produced 3 albums then. Brother Chris's Rooms with Color, J.D. Chase, Smooth Talker, and there was actually more than two. I can't think of the third one right now. Jonathan Wingate is one of them. So, a few years go by, and then I decided I want to start my own business here. And, I started really working with songwriters to develop their material. So, a song, and which is, I'll now get into how my process works. A songwriter comes to me, and let me back up just one more time. I'm kind of stopped here locally between, New Orleans maybe, but more like Nashville or LA or New York. If you're a country artist, you're typically going to go to Nashville to get your stuff done professionally. It's going to get done right. If you're a rock guy, you might want to go to LA or New York. Jazz guy, go to New York. Or New Orleans. But so I'm kind of like the guy here in this area that a lot of songwriters come to, so that they don't have to drive to Nashville and spend all their money in a different town that doesn't get spent back here in this town. And I'm certainly not saying that people hire me just so they keep their money locally, I've got to be doing the job. I mean, I pride myself in my work. My clients are happy with the work, and it's like a few people have said over the years, you can't stay in this kind of business for 17 years unless you're doing something right. So I think I am definitely doing some things right. So I track songwriters. And typically a songwriter will come in, like today, if a songwriter came in, they would sit in a chair right across from me. And the first order of business would be if they're a guitarist, they'll play the song for me. They'll sit down, and just play it on an acoustic guitar. And so I'm listening, and I think one of the things I have a keen ability, with is being able to hear what they're doing and being able to kind of immediately place it somewhere. I mean, music. Typically, if someone's coming in with a country song, you kind of know already it's going to be a country song. I've had times where my client wasn't sure. Well, I'm not sure if this is a country song, whether it would work as a pop song or whatever. So, I think I have a good sense of when someone comes in with a song, what it's going to be like, or how the feel is going to be. So typically they sit in the chair across from me. They play the song. I tap some tempo on my phone, and then I'll kind of throw in a loop a beat that feels like the song. It's kind of important in my world, and this is the case in Nashville, L.A., New York, that we play against a fixed tempo. Now there are times when that doesn't happen, and I'm not one of these producers that say, look, if you come in here, you got to play against the fixed tempo, metronome. But I encourage it. And there's good reasons for it, very good reasons for it. It happens, again, man, all the time in Nashville, all the time in New York and Los Angeles. So I'm not doing anything different those guys aren't doing. Some of your favorite hit records are probably cut against a metronome. So some of your favorite songwriters are using that. So they'll come in, I'll tap some tempo, and then I'll throw in a loop, and I've got something up here. I'll just kind of give an idea. So in this case, I had a client come in, and I knew it was going to be a ballad. And let's get to the intro. So this is kind of like, I knew this was going to be a ballad. So I've got the drums soloed right now. So typically I'll just throw in a groove like that, just a boom, and let them play all the way against that. And once they learn the process, they understand that we're gonna manipulate the drummer so that it's all the fills are there, the chorus and the verse are differentiated, and so they play against a track like this, and then we make sure, I have to make sure I get four things, but absolutely three things. The tempo, the feel, and the tempo is kind of the same thing. But in a case like this, the feel was ballad. This is 75 beats per minute, my bad. So this is 75, and it's a ballad. And so we're getting the timing, the tempo, 75 beats per minute, the basic feel, which is this ballad, and then the key, that's vital, and then the basic structure of the song. So there's four things, but the tempo and the feel are kind of like one and the same. So the three real things, the tempo, feel as one thing, the key, and the basic structure of the song. Those three things I absolutely have to get before my client splits. So the first session may take an hour, maybe, usually not more than that. And once they understand how this process works, they can come in, we can sketch a song in a half hour, and they're out. We take some notes, I record some notes, and then they're gone. So and I do all the work after that. So unless they're a guitarist and they want to play some pieces on it. Of course, most of my clients sing, and I'll explain how that works too. So we get the structure of the song from beginning to end. Now, the tools that I use to capture all this, first of all, I'll explain drums. I would love to use some of the local guys, and I have used some of the local drummers around here, and will continue to use some of the local drummers. But in order to keep, my prices competitive and make sure that there's not, too many people getting involved in the process, because it's usually just a single songwriter. I use a company called Drums on Demand. You can find out who they are. They got a huge catalog of royalty-free drums, and I kind of re-engineer what they do. So I bring in their stuff. I find something that feels like what my client's playing. I'll drop that in. And it's been pretty much a rare occasion, man, and this is a real drummer, man. This guy, his name's Todd Sorensen. He's awesome. He's a great drummer. So it's been a rare occasion that I haven't found a loop or a section of drums that doesn't fit what my client's doing. So that's how I do drums typically. That's not always the case. Again, I've had some drummers come in. And so everything else kind of gets recorded through this chain here. So at the top, I've got a Roland VS 700. Now, this was my go-to A to D, D to A converter up until about 5 years ago. Everything I recorded, the conversion went through this unit right here. It's got 8 really awesome microphone preamps. So nowadays, I'm using this just for the mic preamps. That's going via an ADAT, which is the digital connection into this RME UFX. And the A to D conversion is happening here. Actually, A to D conversion is happening here, and then via ADAT output is ending up here. So I can actually gain, if I'm recording at 48K, I can get all 8 mic preamps into this. Now this UFX is RME. It's a German-built interface, A to D, D to A conversion. It's got 4 mic preamps on it and some line inputs, a bunch of line outputs. It's 30 by 30. But this RME is high end, man. This is German-built stuff. This is Japanese-built. It's tough to find American-built components when it comes to this kind of stuff. This is German-built, and just really high-end stuff. So I've got a total of 12 mic preamps here. Now these mic preamps are what they call transformerless mic preamps. And any digital console you buy nowadays, or any interface you buy, really no matter how much money it costs, if it's got microphone preamps, they're typically transformer-less microphone preamps. Now, what's the difference between that and, let's say, this mic preamp, which is actually my go-to, this and this piece here. There is a difference between these mic pre's and the mic pre's that come in here. Transformerless takes up less space, of course, because there's not physical transformers in the circuit. But the transformer typically adds some color. In this world, you'll hear a lot of that color. That a particular mic preamp has some color, and all that really means is that the preamps like this RME and this Roland are pretty colorless, and that means that what you feed into it comes out of it. So what you hear is what you get. So if you plug a high-end mic into one of these, it's going to be noiseless for the most part. It's going to be very clear. What you hear is what you get. Now with these mic preamps, this A Designs, now this is an American-built, a hand-built American. It's a boutique mic preamp. It's got 2 knobs, phantom power on each channel. Kind of the same thing as with this Universal Audio here, but these have transformers. Now transformers bring in what they call color, and it's the transformer that adds the color. So there's a transformer adds a certain amount of compression, maybe distortion, or has a certain signature because it's a hardware piece. It's a piece of hardware that's installed in the mic preamp. Excuse me, and you find them a lot in guitar amps, and people use guitar amps like Marshalls and Fenders for that reason, because they have transformers, because it adds that vibe. So these have really high-end transformers, noise-free type of transformers, and they do add a certain vibe to the recording. So most of my, what I would call my mission critical stuff, will go through either this Pacifica or this Universal Audio LA610. This is a 2 mic preamp. It's got a compressor built into it too, and a kind of a real simple EQ circuit. This Pacifica is just a 2 knob mic pre, but high end, man. In fact, both of these on this, in fact, this LA610, that circuit, Sinatra cut most of his stuff on these circuits. The early Van Halen stuff was cut on these kind of circuits. This Pacifica is kind of comes from a quad 8 mixing console, the kind of big consoles that you see. Pink Floyd cut some stuff on quad 8s. A lot of the stuff you heard out of the 70s out of California was cut on quad 8s, a bunch of hit records. So this is basically that circuit here. So and then I've got this EQ, which is a tube EQ. It's a hybrid tube EQ, same company, A Design. So these two together cost a lot of money. This is really premium stuff, and along with this. So when my clients come in, I record into this. If they're recording their acoustic guitar, I record it into this. If they're doing a acoustic guitar and a vocal at the same time, I've got 2 channels here. So one channel is dedicated to the vocal, one channel is dedicated to the acoustic guitar. And then when we start dubbing, everything keeps going through this. So at the end of the song, once we're done, if I cut 4 acoustic guitars, a couple of electric guitars, a few vocals, everything is going to wind up going through this or this. So you can multiply this times, if there's 10 tracks, it's like having 10 channels of this if I had to come all live at once. And I don't. So I do have a virtual high-end console in this stuff, because I'm here by myself, I cut 1, 2 tracks at a time, and everything goes through this stuff. It keeps going back through this stuff. So by the time we're done, again, if I've got 5, 6 vocal tracks, 2 guitar tracks, 2 electric guitar tracks, bass track, everything is going through here. So it's kind of like having 12 of these or whatever. So at the end of the day, everything is going through this high-end chain of gear. So that replaces what you would see in a giant console. So that's important, because it's high-end stuff from a perspective of quality. You cannot buy better mic preamps than this, or better tube EQ than this, or this. I mean, yeah, there are different flavors. There are the Naves, the Solid State Logics, the API, but they're all just different flavors of high-end stuff. Not necessarily better, just different. So quality-wise, I'm doing the same thing every major studio in the entire planet's doing. The signal chain's going through high-end gear, and it's going through high-end A to D, D to A conversion. So that's kind of what sets me apart from a lot of other places, in the fact that I am very compact here, but it's excessively high end. So I chose this stuff after a huge amount of research, and this is kind of what I ended up with. So that's how things get started. And again, when a client comes in, we will sketch a song, and sketching gets the 3 things I mentioned earlier. My client will leave. Well, first of all, we'll take some notes, and I'll record notes. And the notes are like Uh, well, this is a country we know for example, let's say it's a Christian song, a praise and worship type of song, and so we know how there are different passages and how we need to go from one passage to the next passage. So we take notes like that, and what sort of instrumentation is going to go in this particular passage. When we get to a loud piece, what's going to happen there? What type of instrumentation are you hearing in your head? You know, if it's a country song, what type of solo? Would you like a guitar solo? Would you like a fiddle? Would you like a steel guitar? I don't do fiddle, and I'm not really a keyboard player, and I'm not really a steel guitar player, but I have access to some high-end guys uh, that we bring in for things like that. So again, this is how the basic process starts for me. So once my client splits, I start recording all the pieces. And I typically develop the drum track right after they split, and the bass track comes next. The foundation of the song always kind of starts first. And I'll tell my clients, I'll send you a copy of, my first what I would call an enhanced sketch. That is me playing some of the pieces, getting the foundation to where I feel like it's right, and I'll send it to my client and say, "What do you think of this?" And typically they'll say, "Yeah, I like the direction. Let's go that way," or "Can we do this or something?" Usually by that point, again, one of my strengths in this business is that I usually have a good sense of knowing where my client wants to go with the song. So, and I've rarely been wrong. And the one thing that I don't do, and all my clients know this, is I'm not going to take your song and bring it out into left field somewhere where, like, you're not going to recognize what you came in with. So it's been a very rare occasion. A client has come in and said, "Well, this is not exactly what I was hearing, but this is awesome." Every blue moon that might happen, and I'm talking about almost never. It's happened a handful of times that I've gone in a direction that when they came back and heard the final product, they said, "Well, it's not exactly what I was hearing in my head, but it's awesome." So the process for me to develop a song takes anywhere from 2 weeks to a month nowadays. I talked about my business model. In the beginning, I was working on album projects, and I would work 16-hour days, 8-song album projects. I'd book, my clients would pay by the project, so they would prepay for an album, an 8-song album, and then we'd cut it, and the turnaround would be about a month. I did that for about the first 3 years that I was doing this, and then it got to a spot where I felt it was better for me as an artist, better for them as artists, that I could actually extend the time period to longer and work on multiple things at once. So in a day, I may work on 3 songs, and it's good for me. It's good for my client, because if I get to a spot on a particular song where I feel like I'm kind of just treading water, I'll switch gears and move on to something else, and it seems to be good for me creatively. And like most artists, I do, and every now and again I'll post this on Facebook, that I have my moments where the muse takes off, and I have to go looking for the muse, and it's not very often, but it does happen. And so it's like I've said in the past, I don't have the luxury of being able to let the muse take off for a couple of weeks and not knowing what's going on. I have to get things done. So far it's been awesome. I've again, man, 80 plus albums. I've got on YouTube. I have 60 that I have framed in here, and I know there are a lot more than that, because I can count it. I've counted them. So that's a basic rundown of how I do things in here. Again, it's all digital. So there are a lot of advantages to that. Once I get a song mixed down, lately it's been cloud service stuff. I'll upload it to Google Drive, Dropbox, or something similar. My client can access it there, listen to it. They can listen to the high bandwidth version of it. I don't have to, create an MP3, which is a highly compressed uh, copy of the song. I'll usually post a WAV file that's almost in the same bit rate as what I record at here. Sometimes I do, and let them hear that. So that's a basic rundown of how I do things. So if you've got any questions, you can contact me either on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer them. Persian Wells here at Digital Sacalait Productions. Thanks, and make it a great day.